Hello, my name is Adarsh. I am a tutor and I help prepare students for the SAT and the ACT exams. Today we're going to be going through a couple of SAT math questions, and as many of you probably know, there are two math sections on the SAT, one with no calculator and one where the calculator is allowed. So for each section I have 4 questions that we're going to be going through, 3 multiple choice questions, 1 easy, 1 medium, and 1 difficult, and 1 open-ended questions. So we're just going through those. I'm going to be showing you how I would be approaching each of these problems, and hopefully that will enable you to better approach these problems and solve them more efficiently and more quickly the next time you take the SAT exam. So let's get started. The first question we have here is question 4. It says if x minus 1 over 3 equals k, and k equals 3, what is the value of x? So this is a simple algebra question right here. We would say x minus 1 over 3 equals k, and they say k equals 3. So we can just say x minus 1 over 3 equals 3. We're going to multiply both sides by 3, so we're going to get x minus 1 equals 9. Add 1 to both sides, and we're going to get x equals 10. So our final answer is going to be D, where x equals 10. Next question. So our next question reads, g of x equals ax squared plus 24. For the function g defined above, a is a constant and g of 4 is 8. What is the value of g of negative 4? So the popular approach by which most students would solve this problem is to plug in 4 for x, and then get the value of a, and then plug in negative 4 in the function. But if you look at the function, there's a much easier way to solve this question. G of 4 equals 8. That's gonna go in right here. Ax squared, and x is going to and that's going to give you a value of 8 as they show you. But if we were to plug in negative 4, we're still squaring negative 4 as we would square 4. And 4 squared is the same thing as negative 4 squared. So we're going to get 8 whether we plug in 4 or negative 4. So we don't even have to do like any algebra here. If we think about this function a bit, we realize that whether we plug in 4 or we plug in negative 4, we're going to get the same answer. So the answer is going to be 8. Next question. If 3x minus y equals 12, what is the value of 8 to the power of x over 2 to the power of y? So this question probably seems pretty daunting at first, but if you think about it a bit, it's not that difficult to solve. 8 to the x over 2 to the y. That's the same thing as saying 2 to the 3x. And the reason we can say that is because 2 to the third power is 8. So it's the same thing as saying 8 to the x. And so we're going to have 2 to the 3x over 2 to the y. That's going to be the same thing as 2 to the 3x minus y. And so that's a rule about exponents. When you have a fraction with the same base on the numerator and in the denominator, you can simplify it a bit like this. So now we have 2 to the 3x minus y. And in the question, they tell us that 3x minus y equals 12. So our final answer for this problem is going to be 2 to the 12th power. And we don't even have to solve that because one of the answer choices says 2 to the 12th. So our final answer choice is going to be 2 to the 12th, which is A. Moving on to our last question. This is a geometry question, as you can probably already tell. A summer camp counselor wants to find a length x in feet across a lake as represented in the sketch to the left. The lengths represented by AB, EB, BD, and CD on the sketch were determined to be 1800 feet, 1400 feet, 700 feet, and 800 feet, respectively. So I'm just going to fill that in real quick. They tell us that AB is 1800. They tell us that EB is 1400. BD equals 700. And CD equals 800. Okay. Segments AC and DE intersect at B, as you can see in the figure, and angle AEB and CDB have the same measure. What is the value of x? So if you think about this question for a bit, you see that it's a question about similar triangles, because they tell us that this angle and this angle are the same thing. And if we know a bit of geometry, we also know that this angle and this angle are the same thing. So these are indeed similar triangles. So we can set up a proportion where we say that 800 over x, right? If we look at the similar triangle here, those two sides would be similar. That equals 700 over 14. Right? The reason I say that again is because these two triangles are similar. So if you align this angle with this angle, and if you align this angle with this angle, you can set up the proportion that we have right here. So if we solve this proportion, we're going to get, we can simplify this by saying 700 equals 1, 1400 equals 2, and if we solve this now, we get that x equals 1600. So that's our final answer right there, x equals 1600. And if we go back to the figure, that makes sense, because 1600, right, x is right here. 1600, this line, this side of the triangle looks longer than this side of the triangle. So logically it makes sense. And algebraically we found it to be 1600. So that's it for the no calc section. Moving on to the calc section. So again, we have 4 problems here, 3 multiple choice problems, and 1 open-ended question. So, for what value of n is the absolute value of n minus 1 plus 1 equal to 0? So we're just going to set up an equation right here. Absolute value of n minus 1 plus 1 equals 0. And I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. We're going to get absolute value of n minus 1 equals negative 1. So now we can think about this question a bit logically. For what value of n will the expression n minus 1 give us negative 1? And if we know absolute value a bit, we know that when you plug a number into an absolute value, it's always going to spit out a positive number, because what absolute value does is it takes the expression inside and makes it positive. So n minus 1, no matter what we do to it, it's always going to give us a positive number. There's no possible way that it's going to give us a negative number. So there's no way that we're going to get negative 1 from n minus 1. So if we look at the answer choices, none of these will work. And D is going to be our final answer, because there's no possible way to get 0 from any value of n, no matter what we do. So that's our final answer there. Moving on to the second question. If 16 plus 4x is 10, more than 14, what is the value of 8x? So what I would do is I would set up an equation first. 16 plus 4x is 10 more than 14, or in other words, 14 plus 10. and they're asking for the value of 8x. So what I would do is I would begin solving this, right? 4x equals 14 plus 10, which is just 24. And I'm going to subtract 16 from both sides, which is going to give us 8. So 4x equals 8. And I don't want to simplify this any further because they're asking for the value of 8x. So I actually want to multiply the equation by 2, right? Multiply the left side by 2, multiply the right side by 2. So 4x times 2 is 8x, and 8 times 2 is going to give us 16. So the value of 8x, right? They're not asking for the value of x, they're asking for the value of 8x. That is going to be 16. So if we go to the answer choices, C is our answer. Moving on to the third multiple choice question I have here. It's a little longer question, so we're going to look at the diagram first, and then we're going to go on to the question. We have a parabola here. They give us the equation. They have the vertex labeled as A. That's pretty much it. So now let's go to the question. Which of the following is an equivalent form of the equation of the graph shown in the xy plane above, from which the coordinates of vertex A can be identified as constants in the equation? So basically what they're saying here is that the numerical values in these equations, there's only going to be 2 numerical values, and those have to be the coordinates of the vertex. And what is the vertex? The vertex is what they have labeled here as A. So that's our vertex. So if we look at this, point here, it looks like just by eyeballing this, that the vertex A is located at coordinates 1, negative 15. And then that's just by eyeballing it. Could be a bit off, but let's see. 1, negative 15. So just by eyeballing it, right, this can be the right answer, this can be the right answer. This may be the right answer. And D might be the right answer too, right? They're both approximately close to what we have here. But when I'm looking at these, it looks like perhaps the coordinates may be 1, negative 16. So that is the, just by eyeballing it, I would go with with the letter D. We know that A and B are nowhere near close. In fact, these are the constants in these two equations are the 0 values, right? They're the x-intercepts of the parabola. So A and B are not the right answer, and we're left with these two answer choices, which is C and D. And if we were to solve this out, these two answer choices are actually the same as the equation that they give us. So it's not like one of them is incorrect. Both of them are equal to the original equation. But just by eyeballing it again, right? The x value is not close to 2. It's closer to 1. And if we look here, it's a little under 15. So 1, negative 16 seems like a reasonable answer. So we're going to go with D. And you're going to find on the SAT sometimes there's no way to algebraically give us a definite answer. Sometimes you have to eyeball things. Sometimes you have to guess a bit. But this is a reasonable guess. We're guessing on a bit of information. We were able to eliminate other information beforehand, and this is a reasonable guess based on the information that they gave us and based on some logic and reasoning. So it's a good thing to remember that it's okay to guess on the SAT sometimes, because what they're trying to do here, right? When you're trying to solve this equation, you're trying to find an algebraic way to prove that the answer that you think it is indeed the right answer, and then you end up wasting a lot of time. So just go with your gut on these kind of questions. So last question I have here is the open-ended question, and it says, for what value of x is the function h above undefined? Especially for the SAT, undefined usually just means you're dividing by 0. So the denominator, if there's a fraction, is going to be 0. That's exactly what we have here. We have a fraction, and we're going to say this denominator just the denominator, is going to be 0. And you're going to find that when you take the SAT, it's really handy to be good at quick algebraic computations. So I can take this denominator and I can expand it pretty quickly. And that's exactly what you want to do, right? When you look at this denominator, I'm just going to write it out. When you look at this denominator, you want to be able to solve it very quickly so that you don't lose a lot of time. And by looking at this denominator, right, I can look at this and I'm going to say, okay, x squared minus 10x plus 25 plus 4x minus 20 plus 4 equals 0. That took me about 5 seconds just to do all of that. And when I combine the like terms, we're going to get that x squared plus minus 6x plus 9 equals 0. So you should be able to do algebraic computations like that pretty quickly. And now what we want to do is we want to factor that again to just say x minus 3 squared equals 0. So if we were to solve that further, it just becomes x minus 3 equals 0, which is then x equals 3. And we can check this by saying, okay, if we take a value of x equals 3 and we plug it into the denominator, we're going to get a denominator of 0. And that's going to give us a final equation, h of x equals 1 over 0. And 1 over 0 is what they call undefined in math. So for what value of x is the function h above undefined? X equals 3. So that's how you would approach that problem and all the problems that we've gone over today. I hope you find that helpful, and if you found that helpful, definitely drop a like, subscribe to this channel, turn on the notification bell, comment in the comment section, anything you want to do, and you can be sure that I'll be uploading more content like this in the future. Thank you.